To Chief Women Arise talk show, and we're here today to talk about birthing without a voice. You know, a lot of times I'm with my clients and they're asking me questions like, am I able to really tell my doctor no about something? Let's say an IV or having a test done, or just having my blood drawn, or having a membrane sweep. And I just think to myself, well, why wouldn't you be able to say no to that? You know, if we're able to say no about a human being that is growing in our body, why shouldn't we be able to say no about something as simple as, you know, a blood test or an IV in our vein? Those are things that we should be able to say, you know, yes or no to with certainty. And, you know, so it's not just my clients, but also just other women that I talk to and such. It's just unbelievable when I hear people just don't feel like they have a voice. And it's important that we feel like, you know, we do have a say in our birth experience and what that looks like. And you know, unfortunately, there's lots of inequities within the birthing community, as you know, Shayna. But, you know, yeah, I just wanted to kind of talk about that today. One thing that I always send my clients is the right of childbearing women, the rights of childbearing women. This is in the Lamaze guide, but it's also online as well. So if you just Google the rights of childbearing women, you'll find it. And, you know, some interesting stuff, like, for example, every woman has the right to accept or refuse procedures, drugs, tests, and treatments, and to have her choices honored. She has the right to change her mind. So, you know, we also don't understand that we have the right to say no at any time. Even when we sign a consent form, we have the right to say no at any time. We feel like we've signed our right away, for example, when they come in and they've talked to us about a cesarean, for example, and then we've signed this document and they think, well, I can't go back on that anymore. You know, I've already signed that right away, but that's not true. You know, right here, we have the legal right to change our mind at any time. And we need to be able to start walking in that authority that, you know, we have in this country. We have freedom, and we shouldn't negate that in any way. You know, another one is every woman has the right to receive maternity care that is appropriate to her cultural and religious background, and to receive information in a language in which she can communicate. How many times do we see that women in the African American culture are dying? You know, the rate of mortality amongst African American women in birth is just astronomical. And you know, that's just in this country alone. Yes. And there's, you know, many other countries where people are dying because they don't have adequate health care, you know. And believe it or not, 45% of pregnant women are on Medicaid today. A huge chunk. Yeah. And when you're on Medicaid, you know, a lot of times there's not very many options. Right. And since COVID, a lot of women are having very difficult times getting an obstetrician appointment even. You know, I have a client right now that it's been so difficult for her just to get an appointment with an obstetrician, and she's coming up on her due date. She's seen the obstetrician maybe twice. Wow. So it can be very difficult these days to you know, to get the care that you need. So here's one more. Every woman has the right to receive full advanced information about risk and benefits of all reasonably available methods for relieving pain during labor and birth, including methods that do not require the use of drugs. She has the right to choose which methods will be used and to change her mind at any time. Now, how many times have we not been given that right? You know, so maybe women can comment about perhaps your birth experience, if you felt like that you had these kinds of rights at that time when you were birthing.
Let me think back.
Well, was it like 50 years ago?
For me, dealing with the autoimmune disease while I was pregnant and being a believer, it was challenging.
Yeah.
Because a lot of things that I stood for, or me and my husband stood for, that sometimes the doctors didn't agree with it because they said my health was at risk. But it's like, if it's my health that I'm putting at risk, or if my husband is willing to let me go through with the pregnancies so we can have a child, why does that bother you so much? So I think it's just a lack of education. I don't think a lot of women know that we have these rights, even when you're talking about saying no to IV. We've been taught that we need doctors so much to do a lot of stuff in America, especially to have kids. And sometimes you feel like if you're not obeying what the doctor says, that it's going to put your child or your life at jeopardy. That's how it's been taught to you. So I think for me and younger women, the more I'm able to educate them on their rights and their options, even just listening to your Redeeming Eve Clubhouse that I didn't know about, the more it gives me confidence in even my decisions that I'll hopefully help my daughter make, or, decisions I'll help the young girls around me make, because they do have these rights. But I didn't know about a lot of the rights. So when doctors were challenging me in ways, sometimes it became stressful because you don't think, you have a way out, or you don't think you have a way to fight, the system or the doctors, but you really do when you understand your rights.
Do you feel like there was a lot of fear mongering that was going on with your doctors
Yes.
and nurses?
I believe, because especially at that time, a lot of people didn't know about lupus, and they just were attracting it to a lot of other autoimmune diseases. That what they did was they make you fearful of what could happen. Like they told my husband at one point he was going to have to decide whether it's me or my daughter, life he would have to choose from. So just imagine someone at 26 being told that. It's like, who do I choose from? And luckily we just, had faith in God and say, okay, whatever God wants to happen in the situation is going to happen. And then even with not taking medicines, I went to my doctor and told them I didn't want to take the steroid. And it was like, well, it's going to help you get through. It's going to help you. And I'm like, I'm going to be fine regardless. Like, regardless if I take the medicine or not, I'm going to be able to get through this. And what I researched, the steroid actually caused more complications to the baby than me. So it was like one of those things, well, why am I taking this advice when all the side effects is telling me it's X, Y, and Z? So,
Yeah, what if you hadn't done the research, Maybe you wouldn't have known that information.
nope.
Yeah.
I have a similar story about IVs. When I was pregnant, I had 4 children who lost really fast. So natural birth was a no-brainer for me. One involved with retirement. So yeah, so I go really quickly. And so I talked to my doctor with the second one, and I said, I'm going really quickly. We have to experience now. Why do I need an IV? And he said, precaution. In case we have to do something quickly, we already have the IV in the arm. And I said, well, I'm healthy. Good record. Can we not do it? Thankfully, he said yes. I mean, not do it. So I think a lot of it depends on the doctor and how much they're willing to do.
Yeah, you have to be able to trust your provider. But that also comes with being able to ask those questions too. And a lot of times, because an obstetrician is seeing so many patients a day, and they have to get that many clients or patients in the door and see them, because then they have to pay for their malpractice insurance just in case somebody decides to sue them. Then they're really only seeing you 5-10 minutes. And so if they can only see you 5 minutes because they don't want to get behind, then there's really not a whole lot of time to ask those questions. But it's those providers that are really going to take that time, make sure that, you're able to ask the questions that you want and get the answers that you need. Those are the providers that you need to stick with and keep seeing.
Yeah.
How about you?
I have 2 sides. When I had both my kids, I was very young and I didn't know a lot. So I just went with what they told me. So I got the works. I got the epidural and I didn't want to be in pain. I was young and I was scared of pain. Sure. So
Mhm.
when they said, listening to others in my family cautiously, oh, get that epidural because you're not gonna feel the pain. So I was
Mhm.
like, yeah, okay, give it to me because I didn't want to feel the pain.
Right.
So I was young. Um, Also too, I was young when I got a tubal ligation. I got a tubal at 22 years old, and it wasn't until my 30s that I regretted it because I wanted to have another baby.
Mm,
And I know,
that's good.
yeah, and I knew it was other options, but I just felt like I get pregnant so fast. I'm gonna just do this so I won't get pregnant again. But if looking back in my 30s, I regretted it. I went through a phase where I really wanted another baby in my 30s, and I couldn't have one. And so, again, that just comes from being young, not knowing a lot, uneducated. Most women are just not educated when it comes to just female health, period. When it comes to reproductive health, what you get in school pretty much is going to be it. And pretty much what you get in school is like the safe sex or this is how a baby's made, blah, blah, blah. Very general, but not all these other options. On the flip side, after I had my babies, I worked in OB for some years. I worked in OB for about 5 years. And the thing is, you mentioned about the malpractice. So a lot of these things that the doctors force or suggest to women, and not force, but strongly suggest, it has to do with malpractice. It has to do with the hospital's policies. So a lot of things, they want to minimize the risk. So when it comes to an IV or getting a C-section, which we know because of your podcast, which I'm putting a plug in, Redeeming Eve, you got to listen to some of those. There's a lot of, that will be a lot of options for a lot of women, but it really has nothing to do with your choice. It has to do with the keeping the risk low. And
Mhm.
so even if you're that woman, that's why you have to do the research, because some providers, let's say you say, I don't want IVs, I don't want this, I don't want that. A provider say, well, guess what? I cannot be your OB because I'm with this institution, right? And because of this institution, so then you have to have then your insurance company. And I know it from the insurance company. If you, let's say, have this insurance, the big carriers, they have a set of guidelines. And I worked with the insurance companies and they have checklists. And guess what? They want to minimize risk too. So really, when it comes to these rights, it's like, yeah, it's freedom. Yeah, but really, the system is set up to design for you really not, you have to really do strong research to see who will take care of you and give you what you want. And a lot of women like me, that young girl who was uneducated, are not going to do that. You're going to just take what they tell you.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they're going to suffer those consequences. for
Right.
Years. I mean, look at you, just
Yeah.
what you said with the tubal ligation.
Yeah.
So just knowing that information, is priceless, but it's information they're a lot of times they're not speaking. And, it's a really a problem in this culture that we have today with, 1/3 of women having cesarean when they walk into the hospital.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's just unacceptable. Why do we have to conform to a policy or a procedure that is, something that the hospital has decided on based on risk?
Mhm.
Okay, against medical advice, I have decided to do this, why can't we be that strong to say, I'm gonna do this instead of what you tell me. I'm gonna accept that risk. And I recall very clearly, I had one client who said, I do not want the needle. I don't want the IV. She had an aversion to needles because she'd had trauma with them before. And, unfortunately, every single nurse that she had lectured her on that needle and how important it was to have the IV. And I took the nurse out in the hall and I said, it's not, you're trying to take away her right. And it is her right to say no to this intervention.
Right.
And she said, then why is she at the hospital?
Hmm.
Because she doesn't have another option,
Right.
you know? So there's lots of women that just do not have the other option.
Yeah.
To go somewhere else to birth. And they have, the hospital needs to understand that, you know, as well. So
Yeah.
very interesting. But, you know, I would love for the people that are listening to join in this conversation. Let me know in the chat what you think. You know, what was your birth story? What was something you felt like you didn't have the right to say or intervene in? What was your experience? And you know, let us know what that was and how you felt about it, and maybe what could empower you in the future to do something that you feel led to do in the future. So thanks so much for joining us here at Chief Women Arise Talk Show. We'll see you next time.
Awesome.